speed. No, not many, like some trainers don't run max speed. We'll have to see if that is the case going into this game, because we're seeing the Landorus Incarnate immediately coming up for both of these trainers, and both of their grass types are going to be joining the field as well. It's going to be the Wellspring Ogerpon for Victor. It's going to be the Rillaboom for Maurice.
Yeah, Maurice has access to that fake out on the Rillaboom, so maybe putting him in a bit more of an advantage situation here. He does have to be careful around the Ogerpon on Victor's side of the field, because that Landorus Incarnate, depending on how it's been trained, could be slower than that Ogerpon, and if you see a Terastallization here, it could get off a big Ivy Cudgel and pick up a quick knockout here, so you have to be careful about where you're going with that fake out into this turn if you do utilize it with the Rillaboom.
Yeah, you can also just go on the offensive as well. Woodhammer's going to be threatening some pretty good damage into either of these Pokemon. It is carrying the Assault Vest, so it should be able to shrug off any of the Sludge Bombs that are coming up from this Landorus on Victor's side. It's Terra Steel, so it wouldn't be able to do that good a damage.
We're going to see the fake out from the Rillaboom into the Ogerpon, and a Sludge Bomb from the Landorus Incarnate into the Rillaboom, but taking it pretty well as Maurice gets a substitute, all-important substitute set up to avoid any damage from something this next turn.
Yeah, one of the awkward things about Landorus versus Landorus is you don't really hit the opposing one very well. That obviously you're immune to the Earth Power, and Sludge Bomb is resisted, so whether you can break a substitute on an opposing Landorus is down to the training. If you don't invest anything into HP and you just go max speed, max special attack, you probably have your substitute broken. If you invest in some kind of bulk, which we have seen that Maurice's did move seconds, so assumedly Victor's would be the faster in this case, then you might be able to survive even a Sludge Bomb. That would keep it safe from the Ogerpon potentially picking up the KO afterwards with an Ivy Cudgel. And of course, Ogerpon is naturally faster than Landorus. Don't actually know who's going to move first between the Ogerpon and the Landorus, whether you can break the sub and then Ivy Cudgel, or if it has to be Ivy Cudgel first because you're faster, and then you can't KO the Landorus.
As we see a Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom into the Landorus on Victor's side of the field. A Sludge Bomb followed up into that slot, but not quite enough to pick up the knockout there. But that substitute is still intact as an Earth Power is fired out into this Rillaboom. Not enough to take it out from Victor's Landorus. Followed up by a Horn Leech, and the Rillaboom is going down. Victor taking an early lead here, but he does have to worry still about that substitute that is still intact on the Landorus Incarnate on Maurice's side of the field.
And we just learned that these Landorus do in fact speed tie, because Victor's moved first on the first turn and Maurice's moved first on the second turn, so probably going to be trained as fast as possible for both of these Landorus. Because of the fact as well, the Ogerpon undersped both of the Landoruses, so it's probably not going to be invested fully into speed, going to be a bit more bulky, a little bit more offensive potentially. But we did see that Victor's Landorus move first, so you could potentially, now that the Rillaboom has been taken care of, you could get a Sludge Bomb, maybe break the substitute. It's going to be close based on the damage that we saw on Victor's from the Sludge Bomb from Maurice's side of the field, and then follow up with the Ivy Cudgel. But then you also have to contend with this Fluttermane that's just joined the field also. Landorus on Victor's side of the field, it's going to be in range of any Dazzling Gleams that's going to be coming out, maybe even if it went for that Steel Terastallization. So maybe forcing this Ogerpon into its Terra, a special defense boost against both the Landorus Incarnate, dropping your grass type so Sludge Bomb isn't doing as much, and also getting a special defense boost against a very strong special attacker like Fluttermane could be pretty impactful too.
Going to see how this turn goes, and we are going to see the Terastallization from one of our trainers here. Who will it be? It is going to be into the Ogerpon on Victor's side of the field, taking advantage of that Embody aspect ability where it will get a special defense boost. Quite rightly pointed out by Jamie, getting that special defense boost against these two special attackers here, and going to make it a little bit more difficult to take down, in a position to do some real big damage here, as the Fluttermane just protecting on Maurice's side of the field, not wanting to take any damage this turn. Earth Power fired into that slot, leaving the Landorus on Maurice's side able to fire an attack in. It is going to be the Sludge Bomb into that Ogerpon, but now it doesn't have that grass typing to it. Really nice play here from Victor to be able to take that, and just in return a Horn Leech. But is it enough to break the substitute on that Landorus? And it is. So the substitute gone now, and things evening up after that Terastallization. Really nice play there from Victor.
Yeah, that's not much damage at all onto the Ogerpon. And look at the grass drain recovery as well. That's almost back to full after just taking that Sludge Bomb very, very comfortably. The substitute also being broken is very nice for Victor. Now you threaten a KO into that slot with your Ivy Cudgel that you could easily go for. The Focus Sash on the Fluttermane is probably going to be quite impactful here. You have to commit 2 attacks to be able to KO that. You wouldn't have done normally. A Terastallized Ivy Cudgel from an Ogerpon Wellspring, that usually KOs a Fluttermane because it doesn't have the greatest of defense at all, but that Focus Sash, very impactful here. It's going to be able to get off another attack, and if it gets double targeted, Landorus Incarnate's freed up to do whatever it wants on this turn.
You do see a Dazzling can glean from the Flutterman on Maurice's side. It is enough to take down the Landorus on Victor's side of the field. Pick up a nice knockout there as another substitute is opted for by Maurice's Landorus Incarnate. Just protecting himself this turn as a Horn Leech comes out from the Ogerpon. A huge critical hit, not enough to take down the Flutterman, but going to restore a lot of health for that Ogerpon. Like you say, putting him back to pretty much full health after this last turn.
No, exactly full health, it would seem. It's back up all the way to 100% of its health, but taking care of the Landorus on Victor's side of the field. Very nice here because you've got your substitute up once again. You have to commit 2 attacks to be able to deal with that Landorus now. It's been the case that the Ogerpon could have KO'd it whenever it wanted if there was no substitute. You just go for an Ivy Cudgel, Landorus is KO'd, but now it's behind the substitute. It is going to be safe, even from this Fluttermane that's just joined the field. Of course, the booster speed energy is going to be the case for this Fluttermane, not surprising given it's got access to Icy Wind, which is also keeping the Landorus safe from, because you don't get the speed drop because it's going to be the substitutes keeping it safe from that speed drop. And also, it could have been massive damage because of that quad weakness to the ice. So really nice setting up a second substitute here for Maurice.
Yeah, but if that substitute is hit this turn with the Icy Wind, it does set the Ogerpon to pretty much be able to follow up with a knockout onto that Landorus, unless it is able to get another substitute up in between and let the Fluttermane go down to bring something in beside it to potentially support that Landorus for the rest of the game. But Victor setting himself up really nicely, and you can see the importance here of that booster energy as we do see the Fluttermane on Maurice's side of the field switch out. I want to just preserve itself for a little bit later on in this battle.
Yeah, the Fluttermane would have been in range of any attack that the Fluttermane on Victor's side of the field would have gone for. It's definitely the faster one. It's got a booster in its speed. That would outspeed the Focus Sash one for sure. Booster and speed is all around there because they're Gouging Fire getting the booster speed. Also, protect from the Landorus Incarnate. It's not going to have its substitute broken by a potential Icy Wind this turn, which is fired off by Victor's Fluttermane. Going to cancel out that speed boost on the opposing Gouging Fire here, which could allow, depending on the training, the Ogerpon to outspeed the Gouging Fire in the future turns. Horn Leech was committed into that substitute, but thanks to that protect, Landorus is still safe behind that substitute.
Yeah, but for how much longer? You've got to say, once that Icy Wind is fired off, if it does make connection with the Landorus Incarnate on Maurice's side of the field, that substitute will go. It does leave it a bit vulnerable from an attack from the Ogerpon, and has the Gouging Fire got the support options, it can potentially go for something like a Heat Crash, which could be huge damage. It might even pick the knockup out onto that Fluttermane. So the question is here, does Victor go for the Icy Wind here, or does he go with something like maybe Ivy Cudgel or a Horn Leech into that Landorus, try and break the substitute and preserve that Fluttermane for the next turn, where then you can just go for an Icy Wind again, take advantage of that speed drop onto the Landorus where it is a bit more threatened. And you've got almost Maurice pinned because he can't switch in that Fluttermane in that situation because it is such low health.
Yeah, it's such low health for sure. Landorus here, it does seem like it's going for that terrestrialization. It just popped his head forward in front of its substitute just so it can go for this terrestrialization here into the poison typing, getting rid of that quad weakness to the Icy Wind. That, assumingly now, you can't break the substitute with any of the moves from the Fluttermane. It's going to be resisting the fairy attacks, and it's no longer weak to the Icy Winds here. And Icy Wind is the move on the Fluttermane, potentially trying to break that substitute on the opposing Landorus and getting the speed drops, and now Ogerpon is definitely faster than the opposing Gouging Fire, but yeah, really strong terrestrialization here because that substitute's still up. No speed drop thanks to that substitute. Also, very good damage from the Earth Power into the opposing Ogerpon, which is now finally able to launch off an Ivy Cudgel, but that wasn't into the Landorus, it's into the substitute instead.
Yeah, no, it will be enough to take it down, but it does leave that Gouging Fire open to go for an attack this turn. So where will it choose to target? There's going to be a breaking swipe, not going to affect the Fluttermane because of its fairy typing, but into that Ogerpon, going to weaken the attack power on that Pokemon, so it's not going to be effective next turn. Maybe Victor in a position where he wants to switch that out, just leave the Fluttermane in, but in front of something like that Poison Terror type Landorus, it's going to be difficult.
It will be difficult. That's why going for another Icy Wind definitely outspeed this Landorus. Now you've got that speed drop. It's no longer safe behind the substitute. That is a speed drop on the Landorus. That means Ogerpon is definitely moving first in this case. And now an Ivy Cudgel is launched off into the Gouging Fire this time, though. Thanks to that breaking swipe, it's able to shrug that off pretty nicely, but it is brought to about a third of its health. Earth Power follows up into that Ogerpon and is strong enough, even with the special defense boost, to be able to take that KO. A very, very nice showing from this Landorus, being able to defeat an Ogerpon. They shouldn't be able to do that, but it has here. And a Howl is coming out from the Gouging Fire. Going to be boosting up the attack of both Pokemon here. Doesn't really affect the Landorus Incarnate, but now that the Gouging Fire's got an attack boost, Heat Crash should be enough to KO the opposing Fluttermane.
Yeah, Victor got one more Pokemon in the back, which he is bringing in now, and it is the Urshifu here, and it is going to be in a position because of those Icy Wind speed drops to be faster than both the Gouging Fire and the Landorus Incarnate on Maurice's side of the field. So be able to pick up whichever Pokemon at once. You've got to imagine a Wicked Blow is going to be able to knock out anything that Maurice has access to now. So he has to try manage the field. He has got the Fluttermane in the back. It will come in. It will outspeed that Urshifu, but unfortunately won't outspeed the Fluttermane.
Yeah, we'll be switching out for the Landorus here. Switching into the very low HP Fluttermane. That's not going to be able to survive any of the attacks that do connect with it on this turn from Victor's, whether that's just an attack from the Fluttermane, but it's not this time. It's just a Moonblast into the Gouging Fire, and thanks to all that chip damage that was into it in the previous turns, is enough to pick up the K on the Gouging Fire. There's the Wicked Blow. There's no chance of this Fluttermane being able to survive. It's the Focus Sash variant. It's got no defense. It's absolutely blown back.
Yeah, unfortunately for Maurice, being pinned in here with not very many options, and really Victor showing how good that booster energy with the Icy Wind and being persistent with it has paid off in this match. Just putting him in that position where he is able to outspeed with a lot of his Pokemon, making him into that situation where he has to switch out to try and get into a better board position, reset those speed drops. But at the end of the day, when you're doing that, you can't afford to be taking so much damage as well in the process, and that's what it's ended up with. But a lot for Maurice to think about. Very close match. Really, it's come down to 1 versus 2 in the end here. So I think just take your time at this point. I mean, how would you approach going into this game 2 if you were Maurice to tie this up, Jamie?
Well, the substitute seemed really nice. Being able to keep the Landorus safe from all the speed drops. Eventually it did manage to catch one, and then at that point the writing was on the wall. But yeah, a forfeit coming out from Maurice here. Also seeing the writing on the wall and going to lose this game to Victor. Very comfortably taken thanks to that Icy Winds. All those Icy Winds. I think that was the main thing. Even not catching the Landorus in its quad weakness with the Icy Winds, it was still able to just go for Icy Wind after Icy Wind, and then the speed control was all on Victor's side.
Yeah, I think the clever thing from Victor as well was not leading off with the Fluttermane, because it feels obvious to lead off with it. But I think he's probably identified that Kingambit is an issue if he went down the route with the Fluttermane from the start. I mean, you could lead it with the Landorus Incarnate, of course, but you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble if you see the Rillaboom there with the fake out support. You don't want to do that, so I really like the approach that Victor took there, where he kept it in the back till the right moment, brought it in the precise time where he could take advantage of it, where he still had that Urshifu in the back if the Ogerpon was to go down, but he got a lot of mileage out of the Ogerpon, got some big knockouts, big damage with it, so got a lot out of it alongside the Fluttermane. Maybe if you are Maurice, you do consider bringing that Kingambit this game, and I think you maybe played a little bit like Victor played that Fluttermane, where you keep it in the back till the right moment, and then you can take advantage of it and then gain that momentum swing, hopefully close the game down to tie it 1-1 to take it to a game 3.
If you do catch an Icy Wind with a Kingambit, it doesn't care about the speed drop in the slightest. It's definitely the slowest Pokemon available in this game, so it wouldn't matter if it gets the speed drop, and it goes for Sucker Punches anyway, and when it's at +2, not even Intimidate only gives it +1 thanks to the fight, because you get an attack drop. If you catch a speed drop, you are just doing massive damage. You do have the Urshifu single strike available for Victor, which is a very good counter, given that the Kingambit on Maurice's side only has dark type attacks, and that's quad resisted by the Urshifu, so it does have to contend with that. But it would be a really good answer into Victus going for the similar strategy of just Icy Wind after Icy Wind. Even just catching one, that would be able to put the Kingambit as a massive threat.
Yeah, I feel like if you are Maurice, you need a way to be able to kind of keep a handle on the Fluttermane on Victor's side of the field, because it is so impactful in this match. Threatens a lot of things on your team. It almost forces the terrestrialization on your Landorus, which some of the time might not feel like it's the best option here. But Maurice obviously has access to the Ogerpon as well, the Wellspring form. So it's something that he could potentially bring in this match and utilize it a little bit like Victor did in that first game.
Yeah, potential adjustments all around for both these trainers. Victor coming out on top with that very nice Fluttermane left in the back here. It is going to be the Ogerpon adjustment for Maurice here, but as complete switch up coming from Victor. It is going to be leading with the Fluttermane. We're saying how impactful it was left in the back, but here it is turn 1 for Victor, paired up with that single strike Urshifu, facing down that Landorus and Ogerpon.
It's a very threatening lead here for Victor, because paired up next to that Urshifu, you can launch off the Icy Wind and pretty much target either of the Ogerpon or the Landorus Incarnate, whichever one you prefer to, with a Wicked Blow, and you're always going to be guaranteed to get that off this turn. And especially after the speed drop, you know that your Urshifu is going to be outspeeding both the Ogerpon and that Landorus Incarnate. So Maurice in a difficult position here, but like you say, if he does have the King Gambit, it's probably a good time to switch it in, if that is what Victor is going to go for, of course.
If you do go for the Icy Winds, that King Gambit switch in would be very nice indeed, but you do have to contend with the single strike Urshifu, but no switches on this turn. It is an immediate turn 1 terrestrialization coming out from this Ogerpon, going to be getting those special defenses right up so it can shrug off all the attacks from the opposing Fluttermane. Not so much from the Urshifu though, that's going to be hitting on the physical side if it is going for an attack there. There was that Icy Winds, no terrestrialization of course on that Landorus, absolutely massive damage into that, being able to reduce the speed of both sides. That means that the Urshifu on Victor's side is going to be able to move first here with a close combat into the opposing Ogerpon. Massive damage, bringing it down to the red, but able to survive, so it's going to be able to launch off an Ivy Cudgel again on this turn, and it is exactly what it is going for, straight into that opposing Fluttermane. No intimidates here, and it is, wow, it's able to survive that attack.
That is a huge survival there as the Earth Power comes into the Urshifu and activates that Focus Sash here. So huge survival. Like you say, normally in that situation where you see the Ogerpon terrestrialize, the Ivy Cudgel's normally always enough to pick up the Fluttermane, just showing how well Victor has trained it to be able to take that attack and keep the momentum now going into this next turn.
Yeah, very, very well trained Fluttermane there. That's a very unexpected survival, but a very clutch one indeed. Nothing is stopping just a double KO here, and you'd have to pivot around with your Pokemon on Maurice's side in order to stop that. You've used your terrestrialization on the Ogerpon. You can't turn into a poison type on Landorus anymore. That's in range of Moonblast. It can probably be in range of Dazzling Gleam as well, and Wicked Blow will absolutely KO either of these Pokemon. You could still go for a close combat like Victor did on turn 1 in case there was something like a King Gambit switching in, but it's just a Rillaboom switching in for the Landorus instead.
Yeah, the Rillaboom coming in from Maurice, just wanting to keep that Landorus around for a little bit later on, if possible, to try and remove these big threats on the field, getting that grassy terrain set up, and we see this spiky shield from this Ogerpon trying to avoid any damage this turn. You're going to see the Moonblast from the Fluttermane on Victor's side of the field, doing some very big damage there, as a Wicked Blow going to ignore the spiky shield and just take that Ogerpon down.
Very nicely done by Victor there, catching the spiky shield, obviously ignoring with the Wicked Blow, and doing some very good damage to the opposing Rillaboom thanks to that critical hit. Bring it just above half. It's going to get a little bit of recovery thanks to the grassy terrain, and does have Fake Out pressure, so you could threaten even the Fake Out KO into the opposing Urshifu, or just the Grassy Glide into the Fluttermane. There's a very clutch survival of the Ivy Cudgel, but that's absolutely now in range of the Grassy Glide. You could go for a Sucker Punch before the Grassy Glide could come out, but that would be incredibly brave in the face of the Fake Out that's coming out into the opposing from the opposing Rillaboom. Landorus can't really come in here because it's so low as well. If it does come in, then it's still going to be threatened very heavily. It is the Pokemon of choice coming in for Maurice. Yeah, you do get to Fake Out one of the Pokemon, but whichever one you don't could be able to follow up with a KO into that Landorus. Maybe the Landorus is able to outspeed the opposing Urshifu, and apparently it was just a bait completely from Maurice, switching out straight away and into the Fluttermane here.
Yeah, the Fluttermane going to come in, going to just bait there, like you said, Jimmy, with that Landorus Incarnate here. The Grassy Glide coming out from the Rillaboom, going to be able to pick up the knockout onto the Fluttermane on Victor's side of the field. So some real value there and prevent that Icy Wind this next turn. But for its trouble, it's taking a Wicked Blow, and it will be knocked out by the Urshifu on Victor's side of the field. Like you say, if you are taking advantage of that Fake Out, or if you do target one of the Pokemon on Victor's side of the field, it does free up the other one. Both of them are so dangerous in that situation.
Yeah, very nicely done from the Urshifu there. At least the Fluttermane was able to switch in with its Focus Sash still intact. That wasn't broken by any attacks that could have been launched off into it. It could have been a Wicked Blow into the Fluttermane, would have brought it down to its Focus Sash for sure, but then the Rillaboom would have been able to survive this turn and threaten Grassy Glides onto the Urshifu. Now Maurice is just down to his final two Pokemon. The Landorus is still so low at this point. It's in range of Sucker Punch, so you do have to worry about that. But if you're protecting your Landorus, that's freeing up this Ogerpon to just go on the offensive here. Victor's being able to save his terrestrialization, and obviously Ogerpon wants to terrestrialize in the face of a Fluttermane and a Landorus Incarnate, both to get the special defense boost and also get rid of its weakness to that poison type that could be coming out from the Landorus as well. So this Ogerpon is really, really well positioned in this endgame, as well as the Urshifu just trying a last-ditch Sucker Punch too.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I think you have to be a bit cautious if you are Victor to not attack into that Landorus Incarnate this turn, because probably got just enough health points to get a substitute set up, and that's the one thing you don't want to allow Maurice back into the game. But if you are Maurice, you want to try and go for that if possible. Catch a Sucker Punch into that slot, get the substitute set up, but we'll see how this turn plays out as we do see the Terastallization from the Ogerpon on Victor's side of the field. Going to get that special defense boost, and a Sucker Punch from the Urshifu into the Fluttermane, not quite enough to pick up the knockout, and a Dazzling Gleam in return. Going to knock out the Urshifu after all of the work that it's done on Victor's side of the field, but the Ogerpon takes it so well, and we do see an Earth Power into that slot, doing some really nice big damage from that Landorus.
Yeah, but the Landorus is KO'd here. It's the Horn Leech as the move of choice there. It's taken so much damage. It was in range of that grassy terrain boosted attack, and that allows this Ogerpon to recover even more HP here, probably with the grassy terrain recovery that's happening this turn. Going to put it out of range of that Fluttermane's Moonblast attack that it could be coming out. It's not a choice specs variant. It's going to be slightly weaker because it's on that focus slash instead. There's the Landorus in the back for Victor as well, so even if he was able to pick up the KO on the opposing Ogerpon, there would be that Landorus to pick up the KO here.
Yeah, Victor played this incredibly well as the Dazzling Gleam coming out from the Fluttermane, not enough at all, as the Earth Power from the Landorus on Victor's side of the field picks up the knockout, and Victor goes 2-0 in this fifth round of the Swiss rounds, taking the win.
And in very commanding fashion.